Hello educators, my name is Abigail Carr. I'm an early years consultant and teacher trainer from Hong Kong, and I'd like to welcome you today to NARC Power Talks. So let's get started. This session is focusing on the relationship-based approach to early years learning. And I've written here in the early years and beyond because I do believe that this approach should and can be used for children all the way through their schooling. It's something dear to my heart as an educator who's worked with young children for more than 20 years and seen the difference when educators really focus on building those relationships with the children and their families. So I'd like you to start by thinking about what your beliefs are about children. When you think about your own beliefs, it brings you back to a reflective state around your teaching. And if you start to think about what you really believe about how children learn, about your role in their life, and also about how they can learn and develop. So you can ask yourself, do children have rights? We all know about the UN Convention of the Rights of the Child. How far do you go to really understand what children's rights are and implement them and include them in your classrooms? Do children deserve respect? Many people will say, of course, children deserve respect. So how do we ensure that we are putting that through in every interaction we have with young children? Are they capable learners? Do you believe that? Do you truly believe that every child in your care, every single child, is able to learn and develop to their full potential? Sometimes when we have children who have special needs or additional needs, there are some challenges around that. And often there are teachers that may have some difficulty in finding how capable these learners are. What's your stance on this? How do you feel about all children in your class now, if you've got a class, or in the past or into your future as a teacher? Are they naturally drawn to exploration? I ask this because the research shows that yes, they are. Do you believe that? Do you believe that they naturally need to explore their world? And if you do believe that, do you put that into practice? Are they naturally social? Yes. Again, I've included this because the research shows that they are and should be naturally social as a human being. Of course, every child is different, and every child has different personality and dispositions, but we are inherently social as human beings. What do you believe around that? How does that come and manifest out in your classroom? And do you recognize that children learn mostly through authentic, which is meaningful? Authentic means real things, things that are real and meaningful in their lives. Do you believe and recognize that they learn most effectively that way? Again, the research shows that this is the most effective form of learning for children. So have a little bit of time to reflect on this. You could pause the video and just ask yourself these questions, maybe write them down and consider your point of view on this, as well as what happens in practice. And of course, you're reflecting on yourself, but you can also reflect on your colleagues or your management of your schools if that helps you to give a broader view of the reflections in this area. Now, children have a neurobiological expectation for affection and nurturance. Such a powerful quote that has been repeated often through research and studies showing that children are born with an innate need to connect with someone and people, not just one person, people around them. We are inherently social, as we heard just now. And we want to build relationships and attachments as soon as we come into the world, or even before in our in the prenatal stages. Now, if we know this, if we know that children have a neurobiological expectation, is biological for affection and nurturance, how far does that tell us what we should be doing as educators, even as parents, for supporting children's natural development? Now, optimal brain development itself, now we know that the first 5 years of life, there is a huge and rapid development in children's brain, particularly the first 3, but it goes on. And even children older, there's studies showing that even those synapses in the brain keep connecting. There's some pruning going on in the brain synapses as children hit 4, but the strength of those synapses continues in childhood. So optimal brain development really does occur when they receive compassionate care, tender adults around them who are willing to take the perspectives of them and then respond sensitively and perceptively to their needs. It is through research that we have shown that this kind of approach to working with children is the most effective. So what are the 3 R's? We might know the 3 R's as reading, writing, and arithmetic, but I'm going to shun those 3 R's today, because if we need to go deeper, we need to go to the foundation of what these 3 R's are. Now, the 3 R's that I'm talking about today are respecting, reflecting, and relating. These are the key cornerstones of building a relationship-based approach. So when you do this, the curriculum that a child receives, now remember, a curriculum and pedagogy that we put into our schools is not just what's written on paper, it's actually what children experience. It's from the moment they step into our doors, what they experience. And it should be an experience that is based on their perspectives, their individual perspectives, and with adults that respond appropriately to their needs. So respecting. That's when we value the individual child in their learning and development. We understand what they need from us and our environment that we're providing for them. We know what their goals are, we know their motivations, and we know how they feel. We might say, of course, I respect children, but do we really always go back to this value about what they need from us? Not just what we need to put into place from what our school management or curriculum documents tell us. Are we really looking and respecting this individual child and their goals? And we talk about how they feel, because as humans, we also know personally how we feel changes day to day. And for children, it can change minute to minute. So it's really about respecting that and understanding the individual child, or at least trying to and making steps to do that. Sometimes we have challenges around doing that, but we should always have that respect at the lowest level that we want to try. Reflecting. So reflecting, what I mean by reflecting here is observing what's going on around, thinking about what's going on around you, and feeling it. So not just taking everything in, but then thinking, what do I need to do here? So it actually means making a habit of providing yourself the space to be able to do that. So that means not packing our curriculums full. That means not really, focusing on what we might term academic aspects over what children are developing in their personal, social lives and emotional lives. So this is a reflection of what you see and hear and what the children are doing, but also a self-reflection about what you're thinking at that time. Sometimes we've had a long day, or we've had a difficult week, and it's Friday and children are running around a bit crazy, and we need to be able to step back and reflect how we're feeling at that moment, so that we are able to stop, take a moment and decide how to respond. We're human, we have feelings too. They are human, they have feelings too. So this reflection time is so critical to make sure that the relationships and the connections we make with children are positive. Now, life gets in the way sometimes, and we have to, be aware of that. But as long as we're giving ourselves the time and space to reflect, we can take those steps and, work towards what individual children really need at those particular moments too. And that moves us on to relating. So relating, after we've remembered to bring our respect back to the children, we've remembered to give ourselves time to reflect, we then relate, and that's how we respond to children. So we can be responsive by observing with interest. So when we are interested in what they're doing, we are keen to find out what they're thinking and what they're learning. We communicate with them at the right times. So again, that's another critical skill to remember. Relating doesn't mean interrupting and disturbing, but it means finding those times that are suitable to communicate, share, and then potentially change the environment suitably to support children's needs, support their learning and development. So these are the 3 R's. Peterson and Whitmer have covered this extensively. You'll find their reference at the end of this session. Do kind of take note of these 3 R's that we want to replace the other 3 R's with, ideally, to bring us back to the foundations of what we should do to build these relationship-based approaches. So what's your role? Well, first, you need to care about building relationships as the first focus. That means individual children, time to observe and respond, and having those reflective processes. So it means that you have to care about it, so you put it into place. You have to believe that these relationships are going to make a difference. Now remember, if you have connections with people, think about the person that you're most connected with. Do you want to support them? Do you hope they support you? Do you want to spend time with them? Do you want to listen to what they have to say? With children, it's the same. Building those relationships means that we as a teacher can really do our jobs even better. So believing that that should be our main focus is the first thing that we need to do. And we need to respond. Okay, so we need to take time to consider what children are really doing, what they're feeling, and what they're learning. So we actually think about our responses. And I know sometimes in the rush of the day and the busy session, we can sometimes be, quickly say something or do something that on reflection maybe could have been done in a different way. So again, it's all about minimizing our packed curriculums to put this at the forefront so that we're making time to observe, we're making time to carefully respond, and we're considering the feelings and the learning that's happening for those individual children. And then we need to think about our environment. So we shouldn't be just thinking about what we do in interacting with children, but how do they look at their environment? How do they interact with it? Is it conducive to respecting them? Is it conducive to reflecting? Is it conducive to relating? So are we respecting their rights as a child to be sociable, to have explorative activities, to play, to have time to rest and time to have quiet times and time to move their bodies? Are we respecting these needs? And are we having time and space and places where we as educators can also reflect? Maybe a quieter space. Are we able to do that for ourselves as well? And relating. So is our environment conducive to responding appropriately to children, or is it a bit manic and we need to move some things around and take some things away? And I'm not talking just about the physical environment, the timetabling of the day. Does it really go back to those 3 R's as well? That is our responsibility. Of course, we work in different schools, in different settings that have different requirements, but bringing everyone's thoughts back to these relationship focus can make some differences if you talk through with your colleagues, with your management, and pinpoint those areas that may need to be modified. And then using a play-based emergent curriculum that starts with the child is one of the most important things that we can do to build those relationships with children. We need time for them to play and show us their interests, show us their learning. Sitting at tables and desks does not show us their full range of development. Remember, the first 5 years, they are developing rapidly. We need to see all of that. We need to see where they need support. We need to find ways to enhance their learning and development. We need to find time for those connections and interactions so we understand that child. And an emergent curriculum, which is a whole other topic, is when we look at the child individually and we plan from them. So that's one of our roles, planning using the 3 R's. You really need to ensure that you find out what do you already know about the child. Okay, so maybe this little girl here is playing. You know that she's got a baby brother at home. Maybe you don't, and that's an issue maybe. So you really have to find ways of knowing the children, meet parents, send questionnaires, make sure that you have lots of time to talk with families. Then what do you observe the child doing, feeling and thinking? And how can you respond to this child? These are the 3 R's. You are respecting them as an individual. You're reflecting on what you're observing. You're reflecting on what you're thinking about this child and what you know. And then you're going to relate. You're going to respond. So when we do a planning around using the 3 R's, when we respect and reflect, we ask, what am I doing? We ask, how am I feeling? We ask, what am I learning? Okay, so when we look at a child, we ask ourselves, what are they doing, feeling and learning? This child has learned that she can communicate or connect with her toy, her doll, and she's showing her social skills that perhaps she's observed at home, and she is taking care of this little baby in the cot. That's right. And then when I found out what I think she's feeling confident about her experience with this toy. She's learning some social emotional skills. What am I going to do to support that? This is my relating to her. I can communicate with her if it's the right time. I could play with her. I could extend some thinking with her. Or I could enhance the environment by adding some more things, a pushchair that she might be able to use, or some and like nappies that she might want to try and put onto their baby, or more dolls from different cultures that then extend her learning and thinking. Planning using the 3 R's is probably something you do often. Do you write it down? Is there a way that you can add this to your current lesson planning? Have a think about whether these are the types of things that you're planning for, or are you just planning for activities that you want to teach children? Remember, children learn through doing, exploring, connecting, and interacting. And of course, our relationships with parents is a big, huge part of building relationships and a relationship-based approach. So we should be aiming to create a community of support for families, which involves them coming in to our schools. It involves potentially us going to their homes if that's suitable. It involves events, it involves communication, involves information. And again, we need the 3 R's when we build this relationship-based community. We need to respect different cultures, we need to reflect on our ways of thinking, and we need to relate and respond appropriately to different families and the families as a group. And of course, maintain a culturally sensitive environment. When we maintain a culturally sensitive environment, we are respecting our families. We are getting to know them, we're getting to understand their beliefs and ways that they do things at home, at the same time as supporting them and informing them around child development. Always make time and take time to dialogue, to talk with them. It should be planned into our timetables and schedules as one of the major times of our day is where we communicate with parents. I know time can sometimes be a factor, but it shouldn't stop it from happening. That could be phone calls, it could be meetings these days, probably video calls. And of course, hopefully, if you can get face-to-face and be with families, it's going to be even better. Play opportunities for children, so you can be with families during playtime and talk to children about their learning in action. But it's really about believing that that is a very important part of building this relationship-based approach. And our understanding of children and their families should actually underpin everything we do in our planning for learning and teaching. They're not separate from their child. They are a part of their child is a part of them. And when you get to know them, when you understand them, teaching and supporting their children becomes much more simpler and more effective. So these are our responsibilities. I hope that you have kind of come across some informative points from the sessions here, and good luck to you. And I hope that everyone will be building those relationships and making those connections with their families and their children. Thank you.